the intent of this legislation is really to ensure that media organisations are compensated for the journalism they produce, that big tech companies post on their platforms and profit from. So the proposal seeks to get tech companies that failed to strike deals with at least 6 Australian media organisations to pay a tax of 2.5% of their Australian revenue. The government limiting the revenue base to that derived from digital advertising rather than their overall revenue in Australia. So one way to think about it is taxing a smaller piece of the pie at a slightly larger rate. The end result still expected to raise between $200 and $250 million for Australian media organisations. There have also been other changes Labor has announced this morning, including that networking platforms like LinkedIn will no longer be exempt from this legislation, and there will be greater incentives for these tech giants to enter deals with regional and smaller media outlets, including in parts of regional Australia. So unlike the existing news bargaining code, which has seen these big tech companies, including Meta, simply not strike deals with some Australian news outlets, Assistant Treasurer Daniel Molino saying that this legislation will ensure that these companies can't simply walk away.
If they decide to walk away, they will actually have to pay more. And so the news bargaining incentive creates an obligation on big tech platforms based upon their digital advertising revenue, 2.5% of that revenue. They can reduce their burden under that mechanism by entering into commercial deals with the media. If they enter into fair commercial deals, they will pay less.
Now, of course, the concern is that if the government tries to push too hard, it could see these big tech companies like Meta and Microsoft simply walk away from the Australian market altogether. The Assistant Treasurer, though, says he's confident that won't happen because the Australian market remains a profitable one for these companies.
Sarah, how are the tech giants likely to respond then?
Yeah, look, they're not thrilled about this legislation. When Labor announced these reforms a few months ago for consultation, Meta described them as grossly unfair and a government-mandated transfer of wealth. We also expect that Microsoft, which owns LinkedIn, won't be, particularly thrilled about being roped into this legislation. However, we do think that there will be a positive reaction to the limitation of the tax on their digital advertising revenue only. In any case, there is, more details to be worked through. The point, though, to safeguard journalism and the role it plays in Australia's democracy. So this legislation will now be introduced in the next few months.